business. I'd like to introduce Nicole Opas, who's been like 15 years in the games business, more than that. Less. Around 15. Been at Zynga, been at Sony, been at Disney Interactive, AOL Games. I've worked with Nicole closely during my time at Zynga, and I can tell you she's one of the best executive producers I've ever worked with. She's fantastic. Was fantastic at keeping the poker franchise across a bunch of platforms, which she's going to speak about today. So with that, I will turn it over to Nicole. Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks, Jesse. Is this working? You can hear me? No. Can you flip the switch on the side behind me so that it's behind me? Sorry, guys. Little wardrobe. Are we on now? Is that working now? No. Hold on, I know it works. Well, thank you, Jesse. It's been a pleasure working with you for the last 2.5 years. We've created some magic together. It's been a lot of fun. So as Jesse said, I've been creating and playing casual online games for 15 years. I got my start at Sony making games for Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune. That was a long time ago when we were making multiplayer online games, which was pretty fun. I moved on to run AOL Games for a while, and then Disney making games for kids. And for the last 2 years, I've been the executive producer for Zynga Poker. Before you get too excited and think that any of these guys are my friends, they're degenerate gamblers, or poker players. I learned how to play poker not from these guys and watching it on ESPN. I actually learned by watching my dad play at the Mirage in Las Vegas. When I turned 21, I started going and watching him. I sat in a seat very much like you're sitting in today, but behind him, observing his play, observing how he would interact with other players, looking at what was on the board. I must have done that for hours, several vacations to Las Vegas. And then I got the confidence up to play poker myself. And the first time I sat down at the table and pulled up a chair, I was, not maybe the first hand, but in that first session I was dealt 2 queens, and all that observation knowledge just left my system. Like I had no clue how to play this game, and especially freaked out when a 9, a 10, and a queen came over. So I got 2 queens, there's a queen out there, I don't know how to play it. I can tell you the rest of the story and what happened with that hand later, but what I really wish that I had was an opportunity to play and learn poker in a more interactive way. Way back then, there wasn't Zynga Poker. Well, now there is Zynga Poker, and about 30% of our audience tells us that they have learned how to play poker from Zynga Poker. We've focused on making this 100-year-old game as accessible as possible, giving players the opportunity to socialize with other players and learn and grow their poker skills. They really tell us that they love to learn how to play poker, and so we give them features that reinforce that they're becoming a better poker player. This is done with exciting and reliable gameplay and great social experience. This has been the key to our success. Zynga Poker has been around for 6 years. We launched it in 2007. It's the #1 social poker game in the world. We were the market first, which, as many of you know, is a huge advantage, as seen by some of the other players in the social casino space. And actually, because we were so early on Facebook that our players thought that it was Facebook Poker, because we called the game Texas Hold'em Poker for a long time without the branding of Zynga Poker like it is now. We have the largest install base, the highest DAU on all platforms, and we serve, our numbers are quite impressive. We serve about as many hands in a day that McDonald's serves hamburgers around the world in a day. We have the 5th largest fan page on Facebook, only behind Facebook itself, who has 2 pages, one for mobile, one for web, YouTube, Rihanna, and Eminem. Zynga Poker is number 5. We have hundreds of thousands of ratings. We have a 4.5 rating on both iTunes and Google Play Store, and we have a very large economy that we manage on a day-to-day basis. But I'm here to talk about cross-platform play. We launched our mobile game actually only a year after we launched our web game, so this was 2008. The title of my talk is 3 years, so I'm really going to focus on the last 3 years, but we have a long history of being a cross-platform game. When we launched, we intended it to be cross-platform at all times, so we launched with a Facebook connection, but this was prior to Facebook Connect. When we launched in the summer of 2008, Facebook would take another 6 months before they introduced the SDK to allow for iPhone connections of Facebook Connect. Again, we were first to market with a connected game. We had our focus on Facebook's explosive growth at the time, and we did not really focus on optimizing the mobile experience. It was important, though, that we had this connected game. It was important that players could play wherever they wanted to play and connect and socialize with their friends and poker buddies on any device that they chose. Within a few years of our mobile experience, we realized that it was a little bit difficult at the time to monetize, but we had good faith in this as a platform, and in 2010, around Christmas, we actually launched our Android app, and that's about when, in 2011, we really started focusing on growing our mobile experience and growing across platform. So like I said, there was other competitors in the space, but mostly those that were on the top of the charts were mobile only. We really have this advantage of having the liquidity of players from the web game intermixed with the players on our mobile app. We started ahead of the competition with this connected experience, but of course mobile had some reliability issues that we really didn't think about when we were on the web, right? Because players are playing on a bus and they're going behind buildings, and that presents a whole host of technical challenges and experience challenges that we had to overcome. So one of the first things that we did was to optimize the connection experience by putting in heuristics into account so we could take account for the volatility of the connection on the mobile device. Not only was this necessary for mobile play, but it also was necessary for our web players. Our web players were experiencing people cutting out of their game, and particularly for poker, speed of play is incredibly important, and so this was disrupting the experience. But we still had a pretty low rating, and by digging into the comments, prior looking at the web and still looking at the web, there's a great two-way communication that we have. Since we've got such a large fan base and community base, we are able to have a two-way conversation with our players, and we really use that as an advantage to optimize and improve our game, add new features to it. But with mobile, it's really just a one-way megaphone of them telling us what their rating is and telling us what their comment is. So digging into those comments, we began to focus on quality and access to bring up the rating of our game. Surprise to us, because we were very, very, and always have been having a great partnership with Facebook, not everybody wanted Facebook when it came to mobile. In fact, this was a new audience for us. And since at the time we just had Facebook Connect, we actually did have a connection with MySpace and some of the other social networks that we had a presence on at the time. We introduced a guest mode, and this was introducing some new security issues and some new challenges, but it did unlock a new player base that was previously dropping off of our loading screen because, frankly, they just didn't want to play with their Facebook connection. So, initially our guest economy was like a shell of what our Facebook game was because we wanted to learn about this space. But as the DAU base grew, we incrementally brought it to parity with the Facebook experience. Then we started monetizing this audience, and this audience now accounts for about 30% of our DAU. They play in guest mode. We introduced a secure guest mode where players have to give us an email address and password, which we authenticate and own on our end. And therefore, we feel like they can play in a safe and secure environment. They can also save their state, which allows them to purchase chips. And this unlocked a new business opportunity for Zynga. With the guest mode, you're tied to your phone. With the secured guest, like I said, 30% of the audience with secured guests, you're tied to an account. Overall, these economies have paid off for us. And then a focus on quality. So 2011 was our year to really dig in on mobile quality. We had a team that was completely dedicated for about 6 months of the year to improve quality. We focused on polishing the game, improving performance. Performance is critical, particularly for this game, but on any mobile device. We optimized the table experience, as you can see the before and after. We increased the size of the pictures so that the game felt more social. We also improved the ways that people could interact with each other, chat, and gifting amongst players, which we didn't have on the mobile experience before. We also brought over some of the most loved features from the web, which we had learned to be successes, like sit-and-go tournaments and shootout tournaments. The quality actually improved our star rating to a 4.5, where it's been since then, and probably is accountable for a good portion of our growth in 2011, although it's kind of impossible to pinpoint that it's exactly that because there was a lot of mobile growth happening in this space, as we all know during that time. With the win in our sales, we started working on some cross-promotion and new distribution methods. One of our biggest gifts, which we all now enjoy for a cross-platform app, is the ability to send a notification to a friend, a request, etc., from one platform to the other. So particularly in this case, we were focusing on driving a lot of requests from the web app into the mobile app so that players could pick up and socialize with each other cross-platform. It's a very powerful channel which we continue to iterate on. We've also done some more overt methods of driving cross-promotion and driving audiences from one platform to the other. We have a very large web audience, we have a very large mobile audience, but we tried to incentivize some web to mobile play. So this campaign that you see here, we were giving more chips if you would install the app using Facebook's send to mobile functionality. And unfortunately, this actually didn't work very well. We found that mobile growth is more organic. It's really word of mouth. It's not as much forced as we've seen on Facebook. And that's a big lesson for us who have been very reliant on the channels of Facebook. So again, accessibility is key, and so giving players the opportunity to just play between both platforms is important. During this campaign, what was curious to us, though, is that our DAU and MAU grew on mobile, but it wasn't driven by installation. It was actually driven by an awareness of, oh yeah, I can play this game on both sides, and we were doing a lot of interactivity and opportunity to have experiences that went cross-platform, which I'll talk about next. Not just using Facebook channels, but we've also used the mobile organic channels. We spent a lot of time optimizing mobile and web-specific viral channels for growth and viral engagement, but in the mid-2011s, we really got involved with push notifications on both iOS and Android. This is about this time in 2011 that about 75% of the current push notifications were created. And what we realized in this year is that social push notifications are actually a lot better for our audience rather than getting a very static message that tells you that something's happening in the game. Particularly with poker, we're sending messages like your friend's playing now, or your friend is waiting for you to play, or your friend has sent you something. And these are much more powerful push notifications than they are than the static ones that just come from the system. Now I see a lot of the space doing things with sales, and that's interesting. There's a lot of excitement around events that's happening right now that we're exploring along with many of you in the room. When Android launched C2DM, Android really didn't have a push system, so our notice were actually a pull system where the device would pull notice from the app as if it were running. Now this system sucked, and when Android launched C2DM, we did a true push, and our DAU doubled in about 2 months' time once we really focused on this as a channel for growth on mobile. As far as those features are concerned, we actually use the web quite a bit to test and iterate on features, not because we prefer web, but there's also an opportunity to iterate a lot faster. We don't have to deal with the submission timelines on Apple's side to do this. One of our most loved features is the lucky bonus. It's like a daily reward, and every time you come in, you pull the slot machine. This is not a normal slot machine because you never lose. You always get chips out of it. We launched it first on the web, optimized the payout on it. The payout is more specific to each player that comes in, and then we launched it on our mobile devices. We also did this with a few other mini games in the system. We have games like Scratchers, Blackjack, which is not a full Blackjack game, but a 21 game, and High-Low. Another example of a cross-platform feature that we launched on web first and now have moved to mobile is our leaderboards. Now, leaderboards are incredibly important for such a competitive game like poker. With our players enjoying playing across platforms, it was important that the leaderboard be global and connecting players to their friends and status on any device. This particular feature with social competition drives the desire to become a better poker player. Like I said, a lot of our players enjoy that reinforcement. Our payers are particularly fond of this because the chips won is the measure of success, and so if you're playing at higher stakes tables, that results in more chips won, which of course for us results in more chips being purchased in our system. There's a big payoff to have the same game state server side instead of having two different states, one on web and one on mobile, so that players can play on one device, pick up and play on the other, and compete in the weekly leaderboard with the same status, same friends. But then again, we've also created some features that are specific to the mobile experience. As you can imagine, we have we all know that the gameplay, particularly on the phone, is about a 5 to 10 minute experience. So we introduced Jump Poker. Jump Poker is a new table type for us where players can fold and then get this Jump Now button, and that allows them to move quickly to the next table. This was quite a technical feat for us because there was that need of speed between moving from tables where prior players would just get up from the table, go back to the lobby, and then sit at the next table on their own. We're now moving them around tables. So this was fun for our engineers, but also a great technical challenge. This is built for the 5-minute player. It allows players to play in a faster amount of time and more hands played, which is what our players have said to us that they really want, is more hands played in a shorter period of time. Another example of a mobile-specific feature is our first tablet focus, which is, the games are the same across all platforms, but for a tablet, we learned something from web where players during their downtime, during their full time, enjoyed playing another game, enjoyed occupying their time with more fun or different ways to socialize with their friends. So we introduced this game called Blackjack Bonus. It's not a full game of blackjack where it's got all the rules of splitting, but this is a fun, count to 21 type of game. We also put in some great tablet gesture UI where you can slide up or slide down that panel to be able to play. And also with the chip stack on the right-hand side, you can you use some swipe to move up and to move down your bet rather than an ordinary slider, which we have in other parts of the game. In summary, we're really trying to make sure that this poker game feels like you're playing a game with your friends. These are not my friends, but these are friends. And we have a lot of social features in our game which are cross-platform, like Poker Buddies, where you can meet somebody at the table, have a light introduction with each other, and be able to share gifts online and offline with each other, as well as the opportunity to meet and connect with your friends through our game, regardless of the device that they're on. So when you're sitting at a table at Zynga Poker, you're sitting at a table with people that are playing on web or mobile devices. So in summary, in the last 3 years, we've learned, experimented, and been successful with our cross-platform game. We've found results and best practices in having a reliable and fast experience, offering players a way to authenticate in a way that they're most comfortable with, again, making accessibility top priority. Ensuring social is also a top priority, enabling players to connect with friends at all times on all platforms, putting quality first, optimizing channels that are cross-platform as well as specific to each platform, and then testing on one platform and moving that experience, once we know that players love it and it's going to be good for our business, into the other. With that, take some questions.
In terms of monetization in poker, we notice you're all increasing the opportunity to monetize your players. So how do you balance abandonment with the increase in trying to get them to buy chips? Do you have a metrics that you look at there? How do you do that?
Yeah, so the question is, how do we balance abandonment of players?
In terms of your aggressiveness in terms of getting them to monetize,
right.
Buy chips, buy chips, buy chips.
Right.
So where's the...
Sure. So the question is, what's the balance between driving some profitability and revenue and driving a big player base? Our focus is always going to be on a big player base. That's what Zynga, we want to make games where people are connecting. So we're focusing all the time on making the best experience possible. And then we're doing things where we're going to have opportunities to let players become better poker players. And depending on how good of a poker player they are, they're going to end up probably getting into the monetization cycle for us.
But in terms of an actual metric, you must watch this. Just because you get a lot of more money, are you losing half, not that's exaggerating, are you losing half your players, or what's...
No, we're always trying to keep things in balance. So, I mean, we do look at, particularly now with the game, so we're looking at engagement and retention. So that's our biggest number that we're looking at, and we look at that by payers and non-payers. Yep. Hi.
You mentioned that you have different economy for mobile versus web. Can you explain a bit? Why do you use different economy, and how do you balance different economies for a player who plays both on web and on mobile?
Let me clarify that. So it's the same economy, it's just split into different pools. And the big reason for that is to make sure that there's no fraud that's happening. So when you're just playing guess, which is tied to your phone, we actually put a cap on how many chips you're going to be able to have in your wallet at any given time to make sure that that there's no amassment of chips and then just losing them to another player. We're always focusing on making sure this game is as secure as possible. And so we've kept those sort of groupings of people separate, although the makeup and the balance of the economy is exactly the same. Yeah, so, and also to be clear, it is only on mobile right now, guest mode, but it's the difference between Facebook connected and not. Yeah.
comment at all on Zynga's recent announcement to pull out of real money or real money interest?
So, like we announced, thank you. I think this is the last question. That's okay. So, we announced that we're still continuing our partnership with bwin in Europe, but we have decided not to pursue a U.S. license. But I'm probably not the best person to comment on that. Sorry. Last one.
The push notifications that you spoke about, can you roughly share the number of the percentage of the users that accept push notifications?
We don't go into details about that type of information. All players, so there's a number of players that enable push notifications. There's a number of players that don't, and that's more people accept them than don't. Yeah. Okay. I think that's it. Thank you so much.